May it be an evening star shines down upon you. May it be when darkness falls, your heart will be true.
So what skills have you learned at school that you continue to use as a teacher today?
Well, we all know Miss Chase doesn't do math, but there were a lot of classroom lessons that I learned, primarily in music and French, because I apply them now. But really, I learned more than anything else to almost try and cater to each student, because not every student learns the same way. I learned a very different way than my brother when we were growing up, and once I had my teacher training, I realized why that might have been, and different ways that I could have helped a student like him, and I like to think that I apply that to my current teaching.
Oh wow, so what other skills have you not used?
What skills have I not used?
Yeah.
Geography. No, most of the skills that I was taught in school, other than the straight subject matter, organization, responsibility, a lot of that carried over. Do I still procrastinate the way that I shouldn't? Yes, sometimes I do, but for the most part, I try to play the responsible teacher card.
Then, what 3 pieces of advice would you give to the young people today who are interested in becoming a teacher?
Well, make sure that this is something that you really want to do. Like I was told, turn your passion into your career. If your passion is teaching or something along those lines, like the way music was for me, then absolutely stick with it. Another piece of advice would be just to get involved in as many different aspects within your chosen field as possible. So if you want to be a teacher, do summer camps, do volunteering. If you want to teach a specific subject, if you have something specifically in mind, try and get involved in things like that. Like with me, with music, I play in an orchestra outside of school, and I'm trying to find a choir that I can sing with as well. I took a conversational French course to practice my own skills, to brush up my own skills. So, okay, so that's 2. And a third piece of advice, make sure you enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, then you're not in the right field.
Okay. Okay, so Ms. Chase, what aspect about your job do you think would discourage a young person like me from pursuing this job?
At this point in time, there's 2 things I think that would probably discourage any young person from going into the education field. One of them is the current lack of jobs, and part of that is linked into the current media surrounding the teaching profession, especially when it comes to the Board of Education and the unions that are working right now with the government to try and resolve the issues around work to rule and strike, and it's not a good time for teachers in the public eye right now. And a lot of people, because we were told to pull extracurricular activities earlier this year, a lot of people, they have some anger towards that, and I can understand why. Students are upset that we didn't have sports up until about a month or so ago. Even music trips, we were restricted in that sense. I know a lot of students are upset about that, and a lot of parents as well. But what people need to remember is that the teachers are upset about it as well. We didn't want to stop all of that, but we felt we had no choice. And I think the media scrutiny on us right now has put us into a really negative light, which would make it a lot tougher for students and young people to say, hey, I want to be a teacher, but this is what I have to go through. And then when it comes to the jobs right now, there's just, with people moving into different parts of Toronto, a lot of the boards are shrinking, essentially, in size. Like, I know the TDSB has gotten smaller. I think York has gotten a bit smaller. Peel is getting bigger. Durham's getting bigger. But certain boards are growing and certain ones are not, so it can be really, really hard to find a job at the same time. would I change my job? No. I like my job very, very much. But I can understand why some people are discouraged, because it is really tough to find a good teaching position out there.
So what did you do to get your first teaching job?
For me, I really didn't want to go outside of the TDSB. The TDSB is what I knew, what I had known since I was about, this big, aka 3 years old. But what I had to do in order to get a teaching position in general was, when I was finishing Teachers College, I applied for what's called our eligible to hire list. And in order for a teacher to get a full-time position at a school in the Toronto Board, you have to first be on that list. So essentially you interview for that before you get to the actual school stage. So you interview for the eligible to hire list, and then you're interviewed by two administrators. Usually it's a principal or and a VP or something along those lines. You make it past that stage, then what happens is, if there is a vacancy at a school and they have looked through all of the internal candidates and don't find anyone who's suitable, then they punch in the criteria into the TDSB database and they say, we need a teacher who teaches A and B. And it pulls up a list of teachers with that qualification. And at that point, they can call and say, we're interested in you for this position. Could you come in and interview? And honestly, I got really lucky straight out of Teachers College. I interviewed for my first teaching job before I had even officially graduated. Literally, the day before I walked across the stage to get my certificate of completion, to get my diploma, I interviewed for the job that I ended up getting my first year of teaching. So I know I got really, really lucky, but I think part of it was what I was going to be teaching as well. So, but that's basically what you have to do in order to get a job with the TDSB itself.
So what was your first teaching job?
My first teaching job was actually at a school in the West End called C.W. Jeffries, and I was hired primarily as a French teacher there. I remember having 5 French courses to teach and 1 vocal class, and it was a grade 9 to 12 vocal class, and it had 4 students in it, 1 from each grade. Yeah, so that was my first teaching job. I taught a lot of grade 9 French that year. There was a beginner class and applied class and an academic class that I taught that year. But that's 1 music course on top of that.
Okay.
So.
What are 3 most important skills that you need in order to do your job well today on a daily basis?
Patience. You need to be willing to deal with a lot of different types of people and a lot of different types of situations that you can't predict. Adaptability goes along with that. You're going to get, in any profession, but a lot of times in teaching, you're going to get a lot of monkey wrenches thrown into the mix, and it's really important to be able to juggle said monkey wrenches, because if all of a sudden you get thrown 4 of them and they all come crashing to the ground, then it could really badly affect the outcome of the day. And then organization is another one. Just be on the ball. Know your stuff, even if it's something that you've never taught before. Know what you're teaching for that day and what your end game is. Okay, always have a plan in your mind about where you're going to take this. Don't just start creating lessons just because, I think I feel like doing this today. Okay, well, what's the purpose? Okay. Always have a purpose at the end.
Wow.